This is an audience of your fellow SAG actors. So I always like to start by asking, how did you get your SAG card?
Well, I was at Page at NBC, 30 Rock Building, and I was actually an intern in the casting department when they were working on the pilot for 30 Rock, which at that point was called the Untitled Tina Fey Project. And so they were shooting the pilot, and then they were shooting, I think, what episode was it? Maybe the 5th episode or something. But I was all over the casting of the episodes, so I was helping out, and I saw that there was one little scene where there was a Page that was supposed to be giving a studio tour in the hallway when Tracy Morgan runs by or something, and they're having this discussion where they were like, well, we need to, I guess, get a background actor to just be in a Page uniform and they can stand there, but actually no, they need to say the studio speech and blah blah. And I was like, blah, blah, I can do it. I was like, I can do it. I have the thing. Actually, I stole my Page uniform from the program, so I still had my uniform. So I just said to the director, I have my uniform, so you don't even have to give me a wardrobe. I'll just put my uniform on. I know the speech because I said it all the time, and I'll just say it in the background. You don't even have to credit me. I don't care. But then they did have to credit me because I was on camera, and I got my line got in because it's as he went by, and then that's how I got my SAG card. So I really kind of snuck my way in. It's great, but you have to do that as an actor. You just have to, yeah, of course.
How did the script find its way to you, and what interested you in coming on board, not only as Emily but a producer?
I was actually, it's kind of one of those classic stories of you never know what leads to what or what could lead to what. And I was working on a documentary project with Angus Wall and Ken Cubana, who have a production company called Rock, Paper, Scissors. And they're really great guys. And we were having a really good time working on this documentary that had nothing to do with anything. And then it was more they love working with me and I love working with them. And we were kind of and I had just produced Black Bear, which was the last movie that I produced. And I was kind of looking for my next thing. And Kent really had the idea because they had another script that John Patton Ford had written, a bigger movie that they were talking about making. But he was like, but he wrote this other script that was maybe kind of a spec script or something. And it's really good and the character's really good. Maybe you want to read it. And he slipped it to me, really just for fun. And I kind of picked it up just having no expectations. And I was like, oh my God, this script is undeniably brilliant. And then my brain just started buzzing, and I was thinking, oh my God, I got to find a director for this and got to play this part. It just kind of checked off a lot of boxes for me. And then I had coffee with John, really just to be I want to produce this movie, and will you let me? And then he was like, well, I want to direct it. And I was like, well, no, because you've never directed before. Yeah. But he had directed a short film, which I then came to learn about him. And then I also learned that he went to AFI and that he really had excellent taste. And when we started talking about movies, and then of course I was like, you should absolutely direct this. It's your movie and it's your story. And then it just kind of snowballed from there.
I mean, I think everyone can relate to this idea of trying to get ahead when the system is so rigged against you. How much could you relate to these struggles personally, and how much did you really have to dig deep to prepare for this character?
Well, I always dig deep. I feel very lucky that I feel like I kind of got my acting break really young. I was really 23, 22, 23 when I got cast in Funny People and got kind of swept away out to here and started working. So I'm lucky that I happened really young for me. But I had I had a couple years in New York of, grinding it out, working in the restaurant industry, working at temp agencies, doing all kinds of different weird jobs. And so I got a taste of it, I understand that feeling. And I think I'm just kind of a hustler, genetically. My parents came from nothing, they worked their way up. My mom went to night school. When she had me, they were 19 when they had me. And, my dad, was a taxi driver and sold things door to door. And both of them just had all kinds of different jobs. And so I think I grew up with just a kind of mentality of you gotta you gotta hustle. So I think I drew on a lot of that stuff, I think, as inspiration. And I think just ultimately the movie for me is about really someone just trying to get their power back. And that can mean whatever, whatever you want it to mean. So I identify with that too.
But I'm guessing you weren't like an expert in credit card fraud or anything like that.
Not then, but now I am.
I am curious about like the process of preparing for this. You probably met people or learned about some of these schemes that like, I'm sorry, but like as a viewer, I'm kind of like, oh, that's clever,
No, and it's not as hard as you think it is. Yeah, I learned. John did most of the research, I think, when he was writing the script. Talking to people that have done these kind of criminal activities and things like that. I didn't really, but the 3 days before we started shooting, the prop master brought over like the embossing machine, and we learned how to make fake cards, and that was cool. So I do have that skill, and you can buy those machines on eBay. They're very easy to find. So like I learned about that kind of stuff, but really you have to get the credit card numbers. You have to have the numbers, and that's you got to have a source for that. So and I do like I don't really do things like that, but I definitely know how to. If I really wanted to do it, I could do it now.
But you've said too much.
Sure.
This film has an amazing cast, and so much of the movie hinges on the chemistry between Emily and Yusuf. And you work so well with Theo Rossi. Was that pretty organic from the start? I don't think you knew each other coming into this movie. Were you involved in his casting?
Yes. Casting was such an important part of this film, as it is in all films. But for John and I, we were like, this is the kind of movie where, we just wanted it to feel really, really, really real. Like we wanted every single actor, even if they had one line, even if they had no lines, just to feel like a real person. So we took a really long time. We took our time casting the movie, and Yusuf obviously is a huge part, make or breaks the movie really. And we searched far and wide. We did not discriminate in that process. We saw all kinds of different people, and we thought whoever is the person will tailor the character to them, And Theo, I was actually shooting in Italy at the time because things were we were still, and basically I met him on Zoom. Really, that's the first time I met him. I didn't know him at all. I didn't watch Sons of Anarchy, although I knew that he was on that show. He got really good reviews for his performance on that show. But I met him on Zoom just as a person, and it was just kind of like one of those things where kind of just, I don't know, like right away it was like kind of busting my balls and kind of giving me shit, and I was kind of giving him shit, and it was like just very obvious to me that he was the guy. And he's from Staten Island, and he's got kind of a checkered past. I'm not going to reveal what he's done, but he understands the character on a level that I don't think a lot of people could. And he's had a lot of life experiences that have nothing to do with Hollywood. So he brought that to the table, and we were like, all right, like, I mean, he taught us a lot about being a criminal and stuff. So that was interesting. But it was the guy. It was very obvious. But yeah, we didn't know each other. We met 3 days before we started shooting. Wow. We had 3 days of rehearsals, which is like a luxury when it comes to independent films. And John made that a priority. So we just it was kind of romantic. We because, it was during COVID, so it was hard to find venues, and we had no money. So I called UCB on Franklin, the theater, and they hadn't been open for a year at that point or something. And they just said, sure, you can use the stage. And they kind of literally just cleared out some boxes, and we sat on the stage, and we just kind of went over the scenes like that. And that's how we met.
That's so cool. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's never happened to you, but you seem to have such great chemistry with your co-stars and your ensembles. What happens if, you do show up and that chemistry isn't there?
You're fired. You're dead to me. I don't know. I don't think I don't know. I can't think of a time that I've ever felt that. Yeah. But I think for me, it's like that's kind of the fun part of, I don't know, acting is, for me anyways, is like trying to figure out how to make that chemistry. And maybe sometimes it's challenging. Maybe sometimes you're like, all right, this is not what I thought it was going to be, but it's kind of fun to try to unlock it in some way, or find some commonality of anything, you know. So
I'm just hearing more and more about, people being cast over Zoom because of the pandemic. And I'm continually surprised when I see this amazing chemistry and learn that people just met. But maybe that's the secret.
sometimes it is. I don't know. I mean, it's chemistry's weird. It's like sometimes you work with someone that you fucking hate.
Yeah.
And people watch the movie and they're like, "Oh my God, you guys are great." All right. It just, I don't know. It's just, yeah, you never know how it's gonna turn out. But anything that's charged, I guess, works.
So going back to your time working in the casting department, I'm curious, are you grateful for that experience as an actor? Because probably when you started going out there and auditioning, I'm hoping, you took some lessons with you, or maybe you realized it wasn't personal. Basically, if someone is like fortunate enough to get in that room with you, is there anything you want them to know?
Oh, I mean, I think I definitely learned early on how just random sometimes it is. Like specifically with the 30 Rock pilot, because I was like heavily involved in UCB comedy at that point, doing live shows, and I knew all the funniest people. I was performing with them every night, and I would suggest to them, like, I don't want to name names, but I'd be like, bring this guy in, like, he's the funniest guy at the theater, like there's nobody funnier than him. And they'd bring him in and he would just bomb the audition, and I'd be like, dude, like, you're the funniest person I know, like, but it's a skill, it's like, it's just weird how it works out that way. But and yeah, it's not personal, but it is. I mean, so it always feels personal, but yeah, I guess the thing I would learn was just that you just really have no control over it. It's just, you just are the person or you're not, and a lot of times you just have no control over it. So I try to remember that even to this day. It's still audition, and I still have to remind myself, like, it's just that the universe will decide.
But you didn't audition for this, I'm pretty sure.
No, no. I don't think, no, I didn't make myself audition for myself, but I would do something like that. I'm sick, but no, I didn't.
It's hard to feel like you have any kind of control in a career in the arts, and I'm curious because you have this production company that produced this movie with the greatest name ever, Evil Hag. Did you? It's been active for a while now, actually. Did you launch that? Have you always been a storyteller, or was it specifically because there's a dearth of good roles out there?
I mean, my dream. I went to film school. I went to NYU, and got a degree in production. With the intention of directing and writing and producing movies. I love movies, and so me and my producing partner, who's like one of my best friends, Dan Murphy, we just really from like day one of film school, that was our dream. We were like, we want to have our own production company, make our own movies. And so that's all we've been trying to do. And I think as an actor, like, when I read a script, it's like, I think right now I'm really having fun acting. I love acting, and I want to continue to do that. So it's been fun to kind of find parts, to have more control over the parts that I can play. But ultimately for the production company, it's really just, I just really want to try to make really great films, like films that are memorable, movies that don't just kind of like disappear, and that, just makes any kind of impact. So, and I think I've always wanted that. I've been making movies since I was a kid. When I was a teenager, all I did was make movies. I had, mini DV camcorders, and I have a lot of movies, like really weird stuff.
Do you revisit them from time to time?
I haven't in a really long time. In fact, I'd have to like get a very specific machines hooked up to view these things, but no, definitely not.
Well, I had this weird thought when you were saying you first met with the director and he's like, I want to direct, and you were like, no. And I was wondering if it was because maybe you were thinking of directing.
I am, but I wouldn't direct this. I wouldn't direct this movie, but it was more like, I was like, well, that's Safdie brothers are going to direct. But no, I was more just like thinking, I was more just, like, I don't know. But no, I do want to direct, but I wouldn't direct this movie, I don't think.
No, I know this movie was made on an independent budget, and I actually don't know how many shooting days, but I know it was fast.
20.
Wow.
Well, 21, including the one day in Mexico that we shot, but 20 days in Los Angeles.
Wow. Which is, it's impressive in and of itself, but also the movie looks fantastic. And you have these action sequences. I think I told you that the sequence of you going after the thieves went viral. but out of context.
No.
Did you guys see this? It was going around where, but like there wasn't any context. It was just her chasing down the two people. And
Really?
yeah.
And the dog, or
Yeah. And the motto was like, "Don't meet strangers at your house."
really?
And I was like,
is that like a TikTok
more
thing?
to it. Yeah.
Talk about TikTok.
Yeah.
I gotta get on there.
No, you really don't.
Okay.
Yeah. It's such a
I
time
don't even
suck.
know how. I tried once.
Yeah.
It didn't work out. I can't figure it out.
But I mean, car crashes and scenes in Mexico. I mean, you're doing all this on a budget. How were you able to pull it off?
Mostly illegally, illegally, really. Jeff Bierman, who's the cinematographer, went to AFI with John Ford, and they had made films together, so they had their own kind of system. And, I think I always saw the movie as a bigger budget film. I wanted to make this movie for like minimum $5 million, and we couldn't get that much money. And so when we decided to just go for it on this kind of shoestring budget, the way that we made it work was to shoot it the way we shot it, which is almost cinema verite kind of documentary style. The camera's moving all the time and minimal lighting setups. I've never looked worse in a film. That's okay. It's good for the character. But it's
You might have
just
looked worse than Life After Beth.
okay. Thank you. Yeah, you're right.
You were a zombie.
You're right. Thank you very much. But I think it's the genius kind of approach, I think, of Bierman and John. It was a down and dirty kind of thing. And it was like, that was it. That's the only way we could have pulled it off, because the craziest thing about the shoot, when I really think about it, is how many takes we did. I mean, we would do 20 takes,
Really?
20, 30 takes easy. And it was because we were moving so fast. I mean, and when it comes to like the action scenes and all that stuff, I mean, I joke about it being illegal, but I don't think it was legal. Like, I think there were things, this isn't like an article that you're going to,
No.
I think there were things that we did that you just have to do, it almost had like a student of film kind of vibe, where it was like stealing shots and, just doing one more take and maybe going on that other street that isn't locked down. I don't know, and see what happens. Safe, of course. But yeah, like the day one, I think, was when I realized, oh, this is going to be intense. Bierman got in the car with the camera. He operated the camera. John was in the back seat and I was driving. We were just going to do some driving shots of just me driving around the city. And I was like, all right, so where are we going? This was the first thing that we shot. I was like, so where are we going to go? Just drive around the corner? And they were like, let's get on the 10. And I was like, oh yeah, you want to get on the 10 right now? And they were like, yeah, let's just get on the 10. And I was like, okay. And there was no protocol. It was just like, we're on the 10. I mean, I'm cruising at 80 miles an hour. The passenger van is behind us trying to keep up. I'm actually getting into road rage, incidences with these people. And so it just, but that was the energy of the movie. We just kind of had to go for it.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask what ended up being the most challenging part of making the movie, but that might have been it.
Honestly, no, that was the easiest part.
Really?
I'm a very good driver, actually, and I do a lot of stunt driving myself. Actually, I would say the hardest part was this one scene, the scene at the end when Yusuf and Emily are like kind of having their big like climactic fight moment in the office, and like he throws the chair and she's like gives her like De Niro speech. And she's like, that thing, like that was actually the hardest day, because it's like a really intense scene. It's a pivotal moment in the film, and the set was just an empty lobby basically, and it was kind of really, I don't know, it's like sometimes just the actual scene itself can be the hardest thing. And the action is actually easy because it's like reacting. You're like, I can't plan for this. Like, I'm just going to react. But when that scene had a lot of ups and downs, and it took, to get it right, it was really challenging.
Did you come to this from shooting season 2 of White Lotus, or did this come first?
This came first, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, this came first.
I
think so.
I have to
Yes,
imagine
of course. Yes.
that's a weird juxtaposition, because like I'm thinking the catering budget on White Lotus probably cost more than this movie.
Honestly, yes.
But do you like that balance? Do you like, doing independent films and then, doing a TV show where, you have a really nice location and probably a dressing room of some sort?
Yeah, I mean, it's all the same to me. What's so like what always blows my mind is like every shoot feels the same to me. And I don't know if it's me or I don't know what it is, but it's like it all feels that it's like, you know, when you're on a set and it's the same. I guess this, yeah, there can be cushier sets and all that stuff, but the things that I'm drawn to, it's like I'm just always drawn to the kind of madness of the production. And to me, it doesn't matter if it's a huge movie or if it's a small movie. The same problems are happening, the same shit's going on. It's like, I guess if you just, yeah, if you have nicer food, or I don't pay attention to that stuff that much, but I like doing all of it. I like,
Well, there's that saying, necessity is the mother of all invention. And I'm curious if on this film there was anything you planned that you weren't able to do for whatever reason, and even just working COVID restrictions, if you came up with a solution that actually was better.
well, the COVID thing was funny because basically, like, I think it was like day one or something. We had the guy that was like hired. This is like, I'm not throwing anyone under the bus. The guy that was hired to be like the COVID swabber person, like, he was really nice. But he maybe like wasn't qualified or something. And I don't know what it was, but he didn't go very far. He just went like, okay, you're good. And I was like, oh, so you're not going to go in or whatever. And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, no, that's fine. That's fine. Next. And then I went over to the producer and they were like, we're gonna maybe like get someone else or whatever. And I was like, no. Keep this person. And we never had a COVID scare. Our production, we were one of the only productions that did not go down. I know, sorry. I take it very seriously, but that was a gift that was given to me, and I didn't deny it. And that guy was my friend, so I'm not gonna let go of that guy. He had a system that worked for us, and it worked because we didn't go down. Okay, you just got to do what you got to do sometimes. So,
I do have like a couple quick questions from the audience. If you have one, just raise your hand, and we'll try to tear through. I was going to say it can be about anything, but sure, right there.
Oh.
Yes.
The driving scene, stunt person, or in the beginning with the BMW.
Oh, the driving scene at the beginning.
That was me. I had a stunt double who did maybe like a take, but I was driving way faster than her. And so I just stood all the take. The stunt coordinator was like, you're really going too fast. It's just, you're driving way too fast. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. Once the camera's rolling, I'm in it. I can't help it. And so it was definitely me, for sure. It was me. I don't think she got any shots in there.
Right here?
That's a great question. Honestly, my interpretation was that it was always going to be that way. I think so. I think the record thing was just, I think me even getting the interview was like her being like, I'm going to, let the record thing go. But yeah, I think it was always going to be that way, which is why I think it was, why I think she was so pissed at Liz, because she was like, this is not, I was not for her. But yeah, but that's a good question.
Such an iconic scene. That's the one that needs to be on TikTok.
I know, right? I know that scene is very cathartic. I feel like for people that have been in that situation, and it's like she's saying all the stuff you want to say, but you don't say.
I'm like, where were you 20 years ago? Right? Sure, right there.
Yeah. So that's what's so great about this movie, and I think that it's really both. Like, I think I don't really see her as a victim that much. I mean, I think that she's trying to navigate a broken system, like a lot of people are, and it's really frustrating and infuriating. But I think at the end of the day and at the end of the movie, I think one of the takeaways is that this is just who she is. Like, she doesn't make the best decisions always. Like, you're a little bit like, I want to be rooting for her, and I want to understand her motivation for doing the things that she does, but she takes it to a level that is irresponsible and dangerous, and that can only be, I think, a reflection of just who she is. And I think it reminds me of Straight Time, the movie with Dustin Hoffman, which I thought about a lot when we were making the movie. And that movie is so great because if you haven't seen it, it's a great movie from the 70s. But that it's the same kind of thing where you're like, this guy, you think you're going to watch a movie about a criminal getting out of jail and going straight. And then you realize, like, no, that's just who he is. He can't help himself. He's a criminal. He wants to keep, doing stuff like that. So it's kind of both, I think. But I think it's both.
But I'm weirdly happy for her at the end. Is that okay, or is that
just I think so. I mean, I think it's like sad for our country in a weird way. It's like, what is the American dream? I don't know. Ending up in Mexico now. It's like, really. It's like
she got a business going.
Sure, and like but it is. I think it's just about going back to the power thing. It's like you've just watched someone come into their own, and like kind of feel fully realized as who they are, and maybe her circumstances are kind of sketchy, but the interview scene with her and Gina Gershon, it's like, for me, it was like both of these women are bosses, she's a boss now. She's just not a boss in the corporate world, but she's a boss. Like, she became a boss. So it's just, that's kind of why that's why it feels good at the end in some way.
I do want to remind everyone this film is now streaming on Netflix, which makes me so happy because everyone is seeing it. So please watch it again and again. Thank you so much for coming out today, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, everybody. It really means a lot to watch on a big screen. It's awesome. Thank you.